We're making crispy smashed potatoes, and the texture on these is amazing. When you bite into it, it just breaks apart in your mouth, but then the center is so soft and fluffy. And along with that, we're also making a homemade honey mustard mayonnaise. These two are the perfect partners.
Now the potatoes for this, you either want baby, new or cocktail potatoes. I'm using 1.5 kilos or 3.3 pounds, but the amount is completely up to you, depends on how many you want to make. Place them into a pot, then fill that pot with enough cold water to cover them by about an inch. Take them over to your stovetop, place them over a high heat and generously season them with salt and cook them for about 20 to 25 minutes until fork tender. In the meantime, crack 1 whole egg into a tall container along with 15 milliliters or 3 teaspoons of white vinegar, 1 teaspoon or 10 grams of Dijon mustard and 150 milliliters of any neutral flavored oil. I'm using vegetable oil for this. Get in there with an immersion blender and blend this up until everything's nice and thick. This right here is our emulsion and it's also a basic mayonnaise. Very simple recipe at that. To it now, add in 2.5 tablespoons or 50 grams of honey, 1 tablespoon or 20 grams of Dijon mustard, 1 tablespoon or 20 grams of whole grain mustard or American mustard if you want to use that instead, then 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1 teaspoon of sweet paprika, and then don't forget to season it with salt and cracked black pepper. I used about 15 cracks worth. With the additional ingredients now in there, use the immersion blender again, blitz it all up, make sure that honey's completely mixed through, the whole grain mustard's broken down and all the ingredients are incorporated. You can leave it in the container to save dishes if you wanted to, or transfer it over to a serving dish. And this right here is our honey mustard mayonnaise. It is a very simple recipe and it tastes absolutely delicious. Store it in the fridge until we're ready to serve. Now into a bowl, add 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, smoked paprika and ground fennel, that's 1 teaspoon of each. 1/4 teaspoon of mustard powder, which is optional, you don't have to go out and buy it if you don't have any. Salt, and then of course cracked black pepper. I used another 15 cracks worth here. Then get in there with a spoon, mix everything together until combined, and this right here is just a quick seasoning that we're going to sprinkle over our potatoes. Going back to the potatoes, mine took roughly 22 minutes to become fork tender. They can then be turned off the heat and drained through a colander through your sink. We're going to allow these to cool down for about 10 minutes just so they can dry off a little bit as well, because moisture will kill texture, especially if you're trying to get something extremely crispy like these. Once they have dried off and cooled down, transfer them over to a lined baking tray with parchment paper. Then use the bottom of any flat surface you have. I like to use a glass just with a touch of oil on it so nothing sticks. And then push these down as much as you can to flatten them out. The thinner they are, the crispier they'll get, but if they are a little bit on the thicker side, they will have trouble crisping up, so just make sure you do flatten them as much as you can. Once you have that done, drizzle over a little bit of extra virgin olive oil onto each one. You can go a step further and flip them over and do it on the opposite side if you wanted to, but it is unnecessary, you don't have to do that. Then go through and sprinkle over that seasoning generously on all of them, and I did end up using 3 trays for this, but I'm only showing 2 right now. I just wanted to space them out a little bit so nothing's overcrowded. Let's then get them into a 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degree Fahrenheit oven. We're going to cook these for about 40 to 50 minutes until they're nice and crispy on that top side. Then remove them from the oven, go through and just flip them all over. This is going to allow them to get crispy on both sides. Just be gentle with them because at this stage they will be a little bit flimsy. Place them back into the oven and finish them off for about 10 to 15 minutes until they're crispy all over or done to your liking. An optional ingredient is some flat leaf parsley. I'm just using some homegrown stuff that I'm rolling into a bunch to make it easier to chop and then giving it a rough chop. I'm using this as a garnish. If you don't want to use this, you don't have to. You can top it with other things that you might have in your fridge. And when you're happy with your potatoes, they're nice and crispy and golden, start serving them up. I'm using a little board to make the presentation look nice. Then top it with some sea salt flakes, enough to your liking. And of course, that flat leaf parsley that we just chopped, which you don't have to use. Don't forget to serve it up with that honey mustard dipping sauce or a dipping sauce of your choice. And what we've just created right here are these crispy smashed potatoes. They're easy to make, they're cheap, they're delicious, they'll impress anyone, and they're perfect for any occasion.
Now there is only one thing left to do, and that is of course, we can then dig in. I wouldn't change a single thing about these. When you bite into it, it just shatters, but the center is so soft and fluffy as well, full of flavor from that seasoning, and then balanced with that honey mustard, just goes perfectly. Definitely do try these, and thanks for watching.